Hi there, my name is David Batsoffen and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things. Currently, I'm doing a series called In Conversation With. We've just celebrated 50 episodes and I'm very chuffed about that. But we continue unabated, and today I chat to Natalia Rosa, who is one of the directors at Big Ambitions. Nat, how are you doing?
Hey, David, it's been a very long time.
It has. I found some images of you and I at one of those trade shows at the Dome, and that must be all of 5, 6 years, maybe even more ago.
At least, I would say. And then before that, we were in Abu Dhabi together.
And Dubai.
And Dubai.
Yes. I remember Abu Dhabi with fondness. Not so much the Ferrari roller coaster, which I decided not to go on, and that was for all the right reasons, because even though that is short and sharp, it's supposedly the fastest roller coaster in the world.
It is 240 Ks out of the seats, and then I think it's all over in 60 seconds.
I know, but I remember two of our party sitting in the front of the front carriage, and when they came off, I said, "What's it like? Would you go again?" And when they said no, and they were roller coaster junkies, I went, then this man is not climbing into that thing either.
Nor did I, but you have to do it at least once so that you can say that you did it. And
no, I did Space Mountain at Disney World. That's bad enough. You want to do downhill in the dark. And then they don't warn you what's going to happen with cameras swinging over the side. But it's interesting that we start off our conversation talking about international travel, which is ground to a halt, literally and figuratively. So what are you guys doing at Big Ambitions at the moment?
We've been really busy. You know, when everything kicked off and tourism and travel kind of locked down, there was this expectation that everything would come to a grinding halt and that we would have all of these wonderful days of sabbatical where we could, look at the sun and catch up on our reading, etc., etc. I've always been someone who's busy and I've always been someone who works very hard. I can honestly say that I have never worked harder in the last 4 months. It's been incredible.
It seems to be across the board, Nat. Everybody that I've had the pleasure of chatting to, firstly, is to make them find time in order to spare me the time to chat. But they've all started off by saying, we have never been busier. And I think we all, myself included, when this started, I thought, I can finish off that field guide course that I've lagged behind on. I can finish the novel that I started writing. All of that. Has any of that happened? No, not at all. Life gets in the way, which is a good thing, I suppose, because when people say to me, what are you currently doing? I say, I'm a non-travel travel writer, because that's literally what I am.
And I'm a non-tourism marketer.
What is the tourism? I know at the moment, everybody is going, why can tourism not open? Why can't we cross borders? Taxis can be full as long as they open the windows, 5 centimeters. Game drive vehicles are open. Hotel windows you can open. I don't understand. Look, I understand and I don't understand, because the tourism industry, that's one of our major sources of finance for the country and a large source for a large workforce. So how are your clients dealing with this currently, Nat?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, it is a bit of a rabbit hole. Tourism is number 2 in terms of generating income for the economy. You would never think it the way that tourism is regarded in government circles, but it's number 2 after moving. And it employs 1.5 million people, direct and indirect. It also has a large supply chain. So everything from laundry to car manufacturing, tourism has its finger in a pie there, essentially. But we are traditionally not very good as a tourism industry when it comes to standing together. And so there are lots of different messages that go out to government, whereas the taxi drivers are very good with one specific message, and they've been very good at persuading the government to allow taxis to run. But it is, taxis are very different to tourism. Taxis are viewed as a necessity. Tourism is viewed as a luxury. It's not an essential. And the argument that we make as tourism is that it employs so many people. So while it might be seen as this frivolous luxury, essentially the fact that it employs the number of people it does, that it touches all of these different subsets of the economy, is something that should be paid attention to. But when you are, 1 in 5 top COVID nations in the world, you can understand the reticence of government not to open tourism, because tourism is viewed through the lens of the pandemic, that through tourism and through travel, the pandemic spreads and actually came to South Africa in the first place.
True enough. And in fact, we were planning to head off overseas. We were booked to go to Thailand when this all came down. And unfortunately for us, not only did we lose the trip, but the travel agency went bankrupt. So we lost our money as well. We were hoping to get it back, but that's neither here nor there. We are one of many, I think, who are in a similar position. But your clients, are they all local, or do you have international clients? Because that's also going to be the difference between opening locally and starting, the airlines once again. And do we really want to leave the bubble of South Africa?
We have both. As a company, we do communications and marketing for customers internationally and locally, which has kind of been our saving grace, because obviously different parts of the world have opened at different times. So we're not entirely dependent on local businesses, if you will, for our own survival as a business. That said, however, we've been very, very involved with the local industry on what that reopening looks like. And I don't think the tourism industry is insensitive to the fact that we need to save lives. We understand that we need to save lives, but equally we need to save livelihoods. And as a result, the tourism industry has been really, really good at putting together a phased reopening plan. It's a strategy that's a very robust strategy, which is underpinned by safety and health protocols that have been approved by the WTTC. And what it calls for is a gradual reopening. So tourism is not like other industries where you flick a switch and it's switched on. For us to get demand for international travelers to come here, for airlines to want to fly to South Africa, that's not something that happens overnight. That's something you have to plan for. So what this strategy does is it basically outlines the how. So if we were going to turn the green light on today, what would the ultimate actions be to getting tourism up and running? How can we open South Africa's borders as quickly as possible, as safely as possible? And, with this balancing act of saving lives and preserving livelihoods. So it's very much in that realm. Will we open tomorrow? No. Will we open in September? I don't know. Lots of people ask me for a date, and I don't have a date.
No.
Because the risk-adjusted strategy.
Well, this is it. I mean, I know friends who have game lodges who are taking bookings for the middle of August in the hope that something will be open. But if it doesn't, because it's a bit of a catch-22, and I'm sure with your clients it's the same. Without bookings, they can't really reopen, and without opening, they can't take bookings. And people also don't want to throw money into deposits where they may lose out because they've paid another deposit, and then all of a sudden lockdown changes, and it's now only 2021 that things will open, and your money is tied up. And obviously the companies don't want to keep refunding because there are all sorts of ancillary banking charges and that type of thing involved in those costs, and bringing staff in and then sending them home and that type of thing. So what are you telling your clients, or are you able to offer them any sort of solace?
I don't think there is solace that can be provided in this environment, but what can be provided is the ability to make a decision in an uncertain environment. You cannot make a decision at the moment with certainty because you don't know. We simply don't know where we are going. So the trick is to learn how to make those decisions when things are uncertain. And, you talk about cancellations and deposits. That's something that's in our control as a tourism industry. That's something that we can own. We might not be able to stop the spread of COVID. We might not be able to persuade government to reopen in August or September. But what we can say is that we can create an environment that provides a level of security for you, David, if you were wanting to book. So instead of having a cancellation policy that's 60 days out, shorten your cancellation policy. Make it 30 days, 14 days, 24 hours, because you're not getting any business anyway, so you're not losing anything. When it comes to deposits, that's something we can control. We can be tourism friendly by instituting those terms and conditions that create demand, that reduce the fear that you, David, would have to book, essentially. Deposits, don't take a deposit. Or if you take a deposit, make sure that the person understands that it is fully refundable if there is a case of COVID, for example, or if it's related to COVID. So again, we cannot control when we're going to open. We cannot control how the virus spreads. There are so many things we cannot control, but we can control things like cancellation policies and deposits, so that David is happy to go to Mabula or to go to the Kruger when he can travel, because he knows that his money is safe.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And also, I'm learning whole new terminologies, one of which came from you. Because I know about reaching out and pivoting, but then you used a term called leaning in, which I'd never heard before. So now not only can I not go to gym, I've got to learn to lean in, reach out, and pivot all at the same time. I did my back end trying that, Nat.
Woo! I hope you didn't lean in too much, David.
Well, you didn't tell me how far to lean in. So I had to look it up online, and the stuff that I found, I don't think is what you were referring to. But anyway, be that as it may, we seem to, and everybody seems to have changed tack in a way, and has those that can have learned to go with the flow rather than fight against it, because you can't fight against moving water. You can't fight against the pandemic. It's going to win at the end of the day. So the best is to make the best of it. And as you say, I'm sure your clients are finding the same. If they can't get guests in now, maybe they can use the opportunity for renovations, for staff training, those that are still on the premises. There's always, as you say, something to do. Nobody can just sit at home and go, I have nothing to do. Learn to bake banana bread, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I've actually, to use your word, pivot. I have been amazed at the number of tourism businesses that have actually pivoted and are doing things like baking, food, just to keep the bills paid, essentially. And there's no shame in that. I respect that a great deal more than what I have also seen in the tourism industry, and I know the place from which it comes, where we are not kind to each other. So we're throwing stones at each other. We're blaming each other for the fact that the situation has happened. We're blaming leaders, or we're blaming the lack of leadership, because we're just not seeing things are moving fast enough. Or we can see our businesses are going down the tubes, but it's someone else's responsibility to fix it. And that's why, we came together as a group of communications companies probably about 2 months ago. And we said, we want the industry to work together for a common cause. Can we as communication companies come together for a common cause? And we created this campaign, which is called South Africa's Travel Ready. And it's done really, really, really well, because to lean into something, the tourism industry has, to use my phrase, the tourism industry is leaning into South Africa's Travel Ready. And now, because we're entering Women's Month and we're wanting to create tension at the highest levels of government about the plight of women in tourism, we've started I Am Tourism. And if you are on Facebook, you will have seen lots of women, lots of men, lots of kids with I Am Tourism posters, talking about the fact that we are all tourism. We are all involved in tourism in some way or another. You are involved in tourism, David.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, because, pardon me, at the end of the day, the various companies were all insular, and it was all I, me, mine. And now it's got to be us and we and they. And that's, I think, where the mind shift comes, because one can't benefit at the expense of the whole. It has to be the entire thing. If you look at to use a wildlife analogy, if you look at a termite mound or an anthill, they all work together for the greater good of the of the mound or of the body of the insects. And I think that we have to start. We don't necessarily have to be kind to each other. We just have to be aware of what is going on and how we can best resolve this for everybody. You don't want one person to come out on top and get all the business when this is over, whenever the then is. Because I'm not even referring to 2021 as that anymore. It's 2020.2, because it's the upgrade of this year is next year. And that's the sad thing. It's just, I mean, we're already almost at the end of the year. We're only, 5 months away?
Yeah, it's incredible how fast it's going. And I hear you, you look at 2022. In tourism, we talk about our forward book. So our peak period is from September to March.
Mm.
And again, with those cancellation policies, if we're talking about a 60-day cancellation policy, you would need to start cancelling out now for September booking, which means we're steering down a forward book that's literally crumbling if we don't reopen soon, essentially. And if you look at the Bureau of Economic Research, they've said if we don't open by the end of 2020, so now we're not even talking about 2022, David, we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Less than 6 months' time. If we don't reopen by the end of December, and I'm talking international tourism, we will lose 1.15 million jobs in tourism.
All right.
1.15 million.
Yeah, you see, this is the stark reality. I was looking at something online this morning about and it's, I suppose in a way, it may be tourism, maybe not, a restaurant in Melville. And you look at the staff, and then you look at the number of people that the staff are supporting. I mean, the owner himself is supporting 13 people. Now, you can't do that now that your restaurant is closed. So 13 people from one, I think there's 75 in total that are, so it's 88 or something, call it almost 90 people who are affected by the closure of one restaurant. And this is multiplied through lodges. I mean, I was hoping, my port in this storm was the beginning of June, when I had 3 camps booked in Madikwe to go and do stories on. And nice. I didn't contact them. I thought, all right, I'm going to leave it till the last week in May. And then I'll go, do you remember I'm coming up in June? And that last week in May, on the same day, I got letters from all 3 of the camps, one after the other, going, sorry, Madikwe's in lockdown. Nobody's allowed in or out for that matter. We'll see you on the other side, whatever the other side is.
Whenever that is. Although I must say, you say that, but the number of properties that are operating for business travel or for quarantine or isolation is extraordinary. There are a lot of people who are in quarantine at the moment, clearly. A lot of people.
I missed quarantine in Welgevonden by just a few days. I would have loved to have stayed at that particular lodge for the next sort of 4 months or until I was allowed to travel home. But this is all about timing. It's all in the timing. But also, Nat, I think a lot of people are testing the waters here. Places are opening. They're opening quietly. They're opening without fanfare. They're opening to purported business travelers. And if you arrive with your wife and 16 children, well, hey, you're having your own conference, basically. But I've spoken to...
It's an educational.
It's educational. Yeah. But I've been speaking to properties where they've not done that. The properties have closed. They've made a conscious decision. And also the interesting thing, because one of them was in Dahlstrom, and they were saying Dahlstrom has had very few cases of COVID. And they're very cognizant of this, and they don't want to open their property because their major source of guest is Johannesburg, and they don't want to fill up their property with guests from Joburg who may have been exposed and who might expose Dahlstrom to an influx of the pandemic.
That's a very interesting approach, actually.
It is.
I haven't heard that before. That's really, really interesting. It's usually the other way around. You reopen and then people are scared of traveling.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to, because they don't know whether or not you have the safety and hygiene protocols in place. But
Yeah.
I haven't been the reverse. That's a new one on me.
I thought it was quite an interesting way of looking at it. And then I was at a place, it's closed to the public, but I had to go for work. And there were videographers and other photographers there, just a few people. I think there were 5 of us in total, sitting far apart in a huge dining room. It's very weird. And then one of them said, "Would you mind if we joined you for dinner?" And I'm a gregarious person as well, you know. And I went, "Yes, I do mind. I don't want you sitting at my table. You can sit, there's a table there that's about 2.5 meters away. You can sit there and we can chat, but you're not sitting at my table." And it was a really weird feeling. They realized straight away why. And I was uncomfortable with it. But I don't want to say the new norm. It's like when we got democracy here, it became the new South Africa. I don't know if it's reverted back to an old South Africa, and is this new normalcy going to change at some particular point and just become the normality that we're used to going forward?
You know, I hate to admit this as a tourism or a travel person, but when I look at how you have to travel, you know, if I look at like that journey through an airport, for example, and I know how much work has gone into making sure that airports are safe, that hotels are safe, that tour vehicles are safe. It's just the kind of travel that breaks my heart. You know, I just think travel and tourism used to be, and I hope it will become that again, something that is, you know, incredible. It touches your heart. It opens your eyes up to the rest of the world. You enjoy it. And all of these additional layers, like literally these additional layers that have been put in place to keep you safe, I wonder the extent to which that actually detracts from the experience. Because in the past, you would have been very happy to sit at the table across from the person who approached you, because that's the kind of person you are. But now you can't, you know, and how travel is all about meeting other people and understanding their points of view and seeing a different part of the world and opening your mind to different possibilities and different situations and making you a lot more, you know, shaping your worldview. Yeah. And by adding all these layers, you know, to what extent is that removed from travel and tourism? To what extent does that diminish the experience and your ability to shape a different worldview?
It's almost easier just to go, you know what, I'll stay at home and watch Netflix or Discovery Channel and live vicariously through them.
I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. But in saying that, we constantly, even, you know, every day I hear from international tour operators who say that the second the green light is switched on and they can come to South Africa, they will, because of the open spaces and the beautiful weather and the fact that it's low density tourism and you know there's no overcrowding. So if you were going to quarantine, hunker down, get away, escape, this would be the ideal place to come.
I agree with you 100%, and pardon me, I do hope that we right and that the OCD people who are having a ball at the moment, because I have a friend who's OCD, and she says she's been able to come out the closet basically, because what she's been hiding all these years is now standard procedure. You know, she can wash her hands 63 times and sanitize and do all of that, and nobody's questioning her motives, which I think is wonderful.
Well, at least someone's winning. At least someone's winning out of this. At least someone's enjoying it.
Just as a matter of interest, a question that I ask all the people that I've spoken to over the past months. Tell me about Natalia Rosa in matric. What did you want to be? Is this your journey?
David!
You didn't see that one coming, did you?
No, that's the skill of a good interviewer, is you throw whammies out at people. What did I want to be? Do you know, I always wanted to be a journalist. From the age, I can remember the age of 11, there was a Sunday Times competition to write a story as a child. I think you had to be under the age of 14. And I was always really good at English, and my mom said, here you go, come and write a story. And I started writing a story, but it had to be something like 2,000 or 3,000 words long. I thought, oh, and I got about 1,000 words in, and I just thought, oof, no, this is not for me. But I always knew I was going to become a journalist or a writer in some semblance of a career. And in matric, I wanted to become a journalist, and I got a little bit derailed. I did a lot of other things before I got into journalism and before I got into writing. But I think that was shaped because when I was in matric, I actually came to South Africa halfway through my matric.
Okay.
So I had been overseas, and I had to try and catch up 2 years worth of schooling in the space of, when do you write prelims? August. So I had to catch up. It was from about May to August. I had to catch up 2 years worth of schoolwork.
Right.
So I ended up spending all my time studying and actually not thinking about my future. And then I got out of matric and I started working immediately and studying at the same time, and didn't actually get back to journalism until my 30s, to be honest. So it took me a while to get there, but I got there eventually, the thing that I wanted to do.
Well, there you go. And here you are now.
And here I am now, not really a journalist, but writing as a journalist for the tourism industry, on behalf of the tourism industry, but under other people's names. So ghostwriting on behalf of other people.
How easy do you find ghostwriting?
Tough.
Yeah. Because you've got to get... Yeah, I hear you, because I'm tasked with that at the moment, and you have to write with other people's voices in your head. And I'm sure people have said to you when they've read your work, oh, I know that you'd written this because we can hear your voice as we read the words. And I know I've had that. And then people will say, yeah, but that's a good end. It's a double-edged sword, because you can't really hide yourself. And then it becomes very awkward when you're writing for a client and they say, this is how we want it written. And it may be 180 degrees from your particular style.
I do think that we have a secret weapon or secret power, David. And that is that when we write for anyone, we always write for the other person. So I think if you are a writer, you have a very high level of empathy because you are writing for someone else. You very rarely writing something for yourself. It's normally you're writing something for someone else. Yeah.
Can we hold that thought there for just a moment? Would you don't go away. I have to pause the recording because somebody is about to ring my gate bell, which I was not expecting.
Okay. All right,
so
I'm
going to pause the recording and we will pick it up momentarily. Don't go away.
Okay.
So we're back. Just a little ad break pause there. We were talking about your career path and where you find yourself now, and we were actually talking about ghostwriting, putting your words into other people's mouths, and how difficult that is.
We have a superpower as writers because when we write for someone. So to be able to write with meaning and with purpose and something compelling, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person you are writing for. So immediately that comes from a place of empathy. And I think that, as a ghostwriter, if you can put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're writing for, you might not come across with the tone specifically that person would have if they were speaking, but you are able to put yourself in their shoes and understand what it is that they're wanting to convey. Well, at least more often than not, that works for me.
Have you found that you've got some new clients during this period, or that you've maintained your client base at least?
When COVID first hit in March, we as a business lost 1/3 of our income within a week.
Right.
Which is a scary thing for someone like me who's an SME and the sole owner of a business and has 16 staff members who are looking to me for a salary every month. So from a business perspective, yes, I was a little bit worried, I won't lie. At the same time, I had an industry that was a lot more demanding, that needed a lot more help. But that couldn't afford to pay me what it perhaps could have afforded to pay me previously. So we had to increase the amount of work that we did, being paid less, but then we also had to find business elsewhere so that we could supplement the income that was coming in from the business and pay salaries, essentially. And I must say, if I was going to sit on a roller coaster with anyone, Corona coaster.
Corona coaster. Anyone, nice word. Yeah.
Corona coaster with anyone, it would be the team of Big Ambitions people who have literally leaned in, stepped it up, worked twice as hard for less money, and been there every step of the way. You know, they've really, really tried hard and learned things that they wouldn't necessarily have done previously. So just, you know, the Zoom call that we're having now, I used to run all the webinars. I used to run all the virtual meetings. I used to moderate all of them. And it's not a skill that you know, it's not something I enjoy doing or I love doing. I'm someone who likes to work behind the scenes. But there were members of my staff who said, you know, we see that this is something that is needed by the industry. We'll learn how to do it. And they've learned how to do it, and they're running Zooms, they're running webinars for clients that we didn't have before because they now need this type of skill.
I think that's wonderful.
We have had to pivot, and people in the team have had to step up and have had to do things that are not in their comfort zone. But, you know, you don't grow and you don't change anything if you don't have to.
Yeah.
So not all things that have come out of COVID have been bad.
Well, this is it. And as long as you've accepted that challenge and taken it on board, then you come out the winner for it. Nat, if people want to find out more about Big Ambitions and the work that you're currently doing, specifically now in August with Women's Month, where do they go?
So the website that we are using to push our South Africa's Travel Ready and I Am Tourism campaign is www.traveltosouthafrica.org. Traveltosouthafrica.org. It's not a difficult URL. I'm sure you'll remember it. And all the information that we have there around I Am Tourism and South Africa's Travel Ready is on there. There are a whole bunch of communications agencies that are behind this. It's not just Big Ambitions, and it's important for me to pay tribute to those women as well, because they're also working pro bono for the tourism industry at the moment, and we have a great deal to thank them for as a result. You know, it's been hours and hours of work that these women have put in. So the agencies that are involved are listed on that traveltosouthafrica.org website, and you know, they deserve all the glory for all the work that they've done to keep the tourism industry running and in people's hearts and minds when really no one is thinking about tourism and travel.
My guest in conversation with today has been the director of Big Ambitions, that's Natalia Rosa. Nat, thank you so much for being my guest. And I look forward to the time when we can maybe once again hop on a plane and go off on a junket somewhere or another.
Just not on a roller coaster
or
a Corona. Thank you, David, for having me, and really, really appreciate the work that you're doing as well. Thanks so much.
Bye for now.